Welcome to the Steve and Bethany podcast.
It's your weekly dose of hope, encouragement, and a whole lot of fun.
All right, let's get to it.
It's episode 15.
All right, welcome in. It's the Steve and Bethany Hopecast. We are glad that you're here, and we just continue to look at the numbers and from where people are watching and listening. It's amazing.
It's really, really encouraging, and we're very thankful. We appreciate all of you for following us on social media and kind of sharing and bringing it up with your friends. You don't have any idea how much it means to us.
And speaking of that, we actually got a write-up on the Arkansas.
Oh, I thought you meant like we got in trouble.
No. The Arkansas Baptist News wrote a little profile on us, Look, we thought it was going to be a little bigger than what it was, but that's okay. It's okay.
Don't sound ungrateful.
Well, no, I'm not. That's what I mean. I don't want to sound ungrateful because I am very grateful.
You mean it was not as big of a story
as you thought it was going to be? It was not as big as a story. And the only reason is because Marissa, the lady that did it, was here for like 2 hours. And we thought.
That is true.
You know, I just assumed in my head it was going to be a kind of a lengthy feature article. And it
is
wasn't.
true.
But it was a nice little write-up. And I mean, the day we were recording this on Monday is when it came out, and there's been tons of people that have already shared it and liked it. So so the whole point of that is thank you, Marissa. Thank you for writing us up and being very nice to us.
You said though that they spelled your name wrong.
They did. Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up.
I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah. Well, they spelled it Martson, M-A-R-T.
Oh, I didn't see that in the article.
Well,
I was looking.
She fixed it.
Oh, okay.
Because I felt so bad doing that.
Well, no, you were basically gaslighting me because you sent me the article and you said, you know, this is a really great article and I'm super excited about it. And then you said, side note, they spelled my name wrong with like a winky face, like,
right.
know. And I went to look at the article and it was normal. It was how your name is spelled. And I thought, have I been spelling Steve's name wrong? So I looked in my phone. I thought that's how his name is spelled. I'm not kidding.
You had to look in your phone.
I went to my contacts and thought, have I been spelling his name wrong this whole time? I went to your Facebook. I was like, have I been misspelling it all this time? But no.
What I had done is I wrote her a personal note, said, hey, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Not to be that guy in quotation marks. My name is spelled.
My name's not spelled like that.
So, and she was very apologetic and said, I'll have it fixed momentarily. And I said, that's great.
Okay.
So
it
was about
it
was about the same time that I had texted you, but she was on the ball and got it fixed really quickly.
Awesome.
But anyway, so we're so thankful for that, and our friends at the Arkansas Baptist News for putting it out to everybody about the Hopecast.
Yeah,
that was really
super
neat.
sweet.
So today we're going to be talking a lot about witnessing and why you should witness and what your greatest witnessing tool is, because I think we just might as well go ahead and dive into it, right?
Yeah.
I think when you talk about witnessing, I think a lot of times in this day and age, it would seem to me a lot of churches kind of shy away from that. It seems like it's more about me a lot of times, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but it seems like a lot of churches are more focused on how can you get the best out of your situation in your life, and not so much focused outwardly, which I think sometimes can be to our detriment.
Well, I mean, it's biblical to witness. It's biblical to share the gospel. So we're supposed to do it. That's part of it. But also you think about, I think a lot of the time people can feel like I'm the only one that's ever felt this way, or I'm the only one that's ever dealt with this. And part of witnessing is encouraging people to say, you're not alone.
Right.
You know, it's not surprising that you maybe feel depressed or anxious or overwhelmed. Everybody feels like that sometimes, but here's the hope that we have in Christ to overcome those feelings and to move forward with peace and with hope in our lives. It's really, I mean, it's for everyone. Like, the gospel doesn't have an age. It's for every age and every type of person. And so it's always worth sharing with someone.
What would you say the number one hindrance to somebody sharing about Christ is?
Just ourselves. Like your own insecurities, your own worries.
Right.
Probably just in your own head feeling like I'm super ill-equipped for this. Like, I can't do it.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
Studies show that, especially when it comes to Bible knowledge, people feel like they don't have enough Bible knowledge to be able to talk to someone about God.
Yeah.
So when I hear that, I start thinking about, okay, it's not always needing to have a master's degree from a seminary to be able to talk about God in your life. I don't think that that's necessarily true. In fact, I know it's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're ready to talk to someone, I think a lot of it is meeting someone where they are, just like what you were talking about, whether it be someone
listening to their story, listening to their background and what their life looks like.
Yeah, I think so too. Because there's that verse in Acts where Philip is out on a road, and the Holy Spirit says, "Hey, I want you to go up there and talk to this guy." And the guy happened to be a eunuch from Ethiopia, and he's reading a copy of the Bible at the time.
Yeah.
He's reading the prophet Isaiah, and he's like, "I don't understand what I'm reading." And so the Bible said, I love the Bible for what it says, and for sometimes what it doesn't say. And because I think the wording is very intentional. And I think where he says, starting where he was at, Philip preached Christ. Or, I mean, that's a paraphrase, but that's what he did.
Yeah.
Because he's meeting that guy right where he is. It's not saying, okay, well, I don't care anything about what you're saying. Let me just tell you that you're a sinner and you need to be saved.
Right.
That sometimes approach doesn't work.
Yeah, not all the time. You have to sometimes just like you're saying, like meet people where they're at. What's your background? What's your spiritual background? How were you raised, or what are you going through right now? And then coming in with the gospel. And I'll say this, my father-in-law Jerry, he's like one of my favorite people in the world. He's great, and he has been a Christian almost his whole life, but it wasn't really until he was early 30s that he got really serious about his faith. So he was a Christian and, went to church, but he was able to get discipled and mentored. And that's really what kind of kickstarted his journey of truly following Christ and being intentional. And he worked in a very non-Christian environment and started just talking to the guys that he worked with. And at that point, they were asking him all kinds of questions and he didn't always know the answer. And so he would call his mentor. He would say, "Hey, I don't know, 1 second." And he would run out of the room, call his mentor and say, like, "Hey, what do you think about this? Is there a Bible passage I can go to? Like, what do you think?" And kind of relying on his mentor for some guidance there. And then as Jerry grew in knowledge and kind of wisdom in that area, he was able to not make as many phone calls and start just turning to the Word of God right away. But I think sometimes you need to do that. If you're newer in your faith, rely on other Christians that are a little bit more mature for some guidance there.
And I think it was a point I was going to bring up later, but we'll hit it right now.
Sorry.
That's fine. No, that's fine. I think the words "I don't know" are totally acceptable.
Yeah.
If you're asked the question by someone you're trying to talk about faith with, being honest with that person is going to go so much further than you trying to think, well, maybe I heard a Sunday school lesson about this one time, and maybe this, didn't this happen or something? I don't know. And admitting that is going to, I think, make you look good in their eyes, but also, hey, I promise I'm going to try to research that and find out if I can what I can find out.
Well, and it's better to admit that you don't know than to say something that's unbiblical, and then that person is led to believe something that's not true.
That's right.
Or kind of get an idea in their head that's maybe not completely accurate or putting context. If you just start kind of spewing out things, there's the chance that you're going to say something wrong. And so I would say it's better just to say, "I don't know, let me go study on that, let me read, and I'll touch base with you and I'll bring it back."
No, I think that's great. And I think there's one other area I really kind of want to touch on, because I know a lot of critics will say that people go out to witness not really caring about that other person. They're just doing it as a sense of obligation
to check a box.
Whereas, whether it be, and they use a lot of times when you go on, like if you went on a mission trip, whether you went out of state or out of the country, you don't really care about those people. You're just trying to do your religious whatever.
Duty.
Duty and be able to talk, because you're never going to see those people again. You're never going to be. And I think that there is a valid point in that. I think that some people do only want to strike up conversations with people just so that they can lead them to the gospel and try to tell them that they're going to be going to hell if they don't, if they don't accept Christ. I think there is that element, but I think for the most part, people aren't taught that way. I think we're taught by Jesus, but also by, pastors and other church staff that you care about people. You want to, the reason you witness is to talk to those people in your life who you love, who don't have a relationship with God, and trying to bridge that gap. So,
well, and sometimes it can be easier to share the gospel with people that don't speak the same language. If you go to another country on a mission trip, you kind of have almost like a church camp experience. I think some people might be familiar with that phrase, where you go on like a spiritual high and you're ready to go and you're feeling super confident and you're just sharing with people. And it can be easier because they don't speak the same language sometimes, and you can, you're just kind of feeling like, oh, I'm here to do this and this is just great. But then when you get back to your hometown, it's hard to walk across the street and share with your neighbor. And I mean, I'm putting a mirror in front of myself.
Yeah,
It's so hard sometimes to do that. I know on the mission trips that I've been on, like there's been times where I've sat down with somebody and we're using a translator, and it's easier to talk to somebody about Jesus that way because I felt like I have time to think about what I'm saying, and there's a little bit of a buffer there as things are being translated, and it's just a little easier. And then I get home and it's like, man, I have a hard time having spiritual conversations with my friends.
Yeah.
It's hard. I think all of us are guilty of that.
Well, and the reason why I think we always say it's biblical, and so just kind of back that up as to why we witness is one of the last things Jesus said on earth before going back up into heaven was, he said, go to all the world and preach the gospel, and make disciples and baptize them and the whole thing. And he said, I promise I'm going to be with you the entire time while you're doing that. And I think we tend to want to think, we hear the word go, and that means what you're talking about. Well, you have to go across the world. You have to go across the nation and minister to people who maybe don't speak the language, or minister to people you're never going to see again. And and in some ways you're right. It's a lot easier in that way. But really what that whole thing go really starts what you're talking about right there next door, with your next door neighbors, with the people at work, with the people, that you just come in contact with. I know for myself that when I was hired on at a classic rock station, I worked as an on-air guy at a classic rock station for 5 or 6 years. And I know that I felt deeply that I was the missionary there. And I know that maybe sound weird and kind of sound goofy, but I knew that the people in that building really didn't have a whole lot of spiritualness around them in their personal lives. And that included just about everybody. And so I really do think that God placed me there as a influence to not beat people over the head with the Bible, but to be the example of what a Christian really is.
Yeah.
And I think that really when we start looking at our workplaces that way, I think that really will change everything. When you see your job as something not to make money, not to take care of your family, not to whatever, but when you see it from the spiritual realm, that your job is as a missionary there, because God has placed you in that position. And if you be honest with yourself, you look around, you say, okay, who else is going to tell people? Who else is going to live the life, the example in front of them? And you think, well, nobody is. I'm there. Well, that's not by accident. I think God has placed you there for a purpose.
Well, we want to take a second and tell you a little bit about our friend, Pat Davis. It's yourhealthplanman.com. That's where you can find out all about him. He is a listener to the Hopecast. He's been an encourager of us since the very, very beginning, and we're so thankful for him. But really, what Pat is passionate about is making you more in control of your healthcare, because his whole setup of health insurance is kind of completely countercultural.
And it really is.
It really turns the health insurance industry on its head. He is passionate about making sure that you are taken care of to the best of his ability, and that means the health insurance company kicking in first instead of you starting things off.
Yeah, I mean, you think about your healthcare plan and you look at it monitored versus everybody else's, and you think, well, there's no change. There's no real difference. I pay a high premium, got a crazy high deductible, and it seems like every time I turn around, I'm having to write a check to the insurance company or a check that the insurance company should be paying instead of me. But Pat Davis says there's a better way. And you can find out all about this. And Pat is such a good guy. Bethany's right. He's supported us since day one. He has been a listener. He was a listener to the radio show that we did together. He's a big supporter of our podcast. And he's even written a new book. And as a creative person, you know, I know the sense of joy and pride that he has to be able to, because it's taken him 2 or 3 years to write this book. And this book is all about mentorship. It's called Ultimate Sons and Daughters, realizing the spiritualness of not only being a son or a daughter, but also a father or a mother, mentorship wise. And it's really a powerful book.
So a mentor and a mentee kind of thing.
There you go. And he's really good. And I know the pride that he had when he was able to finally hold that hard copy in his hand after 2 or 3 years of hard work. And it's available on his website. You can check it out. It talks about his spiritual journey and his philosophy as far as spiritual stuff. And it really is good. You can find it at yourhealthplanman.com. But I just encourage you to go to that website, sign up for a time. It'll take maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes. You choose the time, whatever works in your schedule, and let Pat go over everything and set up a customized plan for you. Now, it may be that you're locked in till the end of the year on your health care. That's understandable, but he can set it up to where you can get on probably right now. It's a lot that you can, a lot of options that he can go over with you one-on-one.
And it really is the kind of thing that he's passionate about. Like we said earlier, he wants to make sure that you get the best deal and the best care. And if he's the person that you can go to for that, then great. Go to yourhealthplanman.com.
All right, welcome back. It's the Steve and Bethany Hopecast, and we are continuing our discussion on witnessing and the importance of it and why we should do it and what the most important factor is. And we'll get to that here in just a second, which, by the way, for those of you watching on Patreon, we are going to be doing the Aftercast here in just a couple of minutes. And we didn't tease this earlier, but the Aftercast is going to have a video by popular demand. Back in, I think, 2015, I was able to teach Casting Crowns, you know, the people that sing, you know, all the great songs, all the songs. We were able to teach them how to call the hogs.
If you live in Arkansas, you know what that means.
Yeah, and if you don't, you need to Google it because it's like the thing to be able to live in.
They were kind of on board with it too, right?
Yeah, no, it was fun.
Because some people, like, I don't know, we had the chance to teach several people how to call the hogs, and some artists are less into it and others are more into it, and Casting Crowns was all in.
Yeah, they were pretty much all in, although there is one funny part of the video that I did not know until I watched it back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that really kind of, anyway, you just watch it in a little while. We'll see it for yourself. Okay, so let's get back to the topic at hand about witnessing, and I'm sure I can just imagine people watching the YouTube or watching Patreon or listening to us on the podcast, and they're screaming at the radio, why aren't you talking about this? Why aren't you talking about the number one thing? Why aren't you talking about your story?
Yeah.
Because that's the number one witnessing tool we have.
Well, I think that's something that obviously everybody has. Everybody's got a story, and maybe I'm just going to speak to people that kind of maybe grew up like I did. So I grew up in a very strong Christian home. I got saved really young, never really went through like a crazy rebellious stage or anything like that. And so for the most part, I feel like my testimony is relatively boring. And for a time, there was kind of always this insecurity that I had about it of like, I don't really have a great testimony. Like, you know, you hear, you go on youth retreats or something. Does anybody want to share their testimony? I was not going to be the kid that got up because I thought I don't really have anything to share. But I feel like a lot of Christians that grew up like I did can feel that way. And here's what I would say to that is that everybody's got a story, and there's going to be a part of your story that will resonate with someone. Even if you didn't have a dramatic transformation when God got a hold of your life, maybe you didn't have that, but there's always going to be an element of your story or something that you struggled with that will stand out to someone and will kind of click with them. I just believe the Lord is faithful in that. And so there's always something that you can share with someone. And I think there's just always a little element that will click with people.
Oh, I agree. And I think a lot of times, going back to what you were saying about those people who have these unbelievable testimonies and they start talking about, you know, what the stuff they were into and how they were just so far down the road and what an amazing thing God did to reach down as far as he did to save them and the whole thing. I think we tend to be intimidated, like you were saying about that, saying,
well, we kind of like rank testimonies of that one is more important or better than a normal testimony.
Right. I know. And I don't think that's obviously not true. And I think without being too general here, I think I can make this statement that most of those people, if not every single one of them that went through all of the junk before giving their hearts and their lives to Christ, if they had the opportunity to have a testimony like you or ours, I think would choose ours over theirs just because of all the heartache and all the stuff that they have gone through. They could have saved themselves so much had they got on board with Christ earlier. But having said that, we all do have a story. And I think it's imperative on us when we start talking about witnessing, start talking about our stories, is that, first of all, like we said in the first segment, is to make sure that we start where people are at. You know, I think trying to steer them in one way when that's not the issue they're going after, to try to get to salvation, I don't think is necessarily the best way to do it. I think a lot of times it can make people defensive, but if you're there, and whether it's somebody going through, I mean, you just pick this situation, the rough time. And even if you can't sympathize, if you haven't been there and know exactly what they're going through, at least empathize and at least share that emotion. Say, look, I can't imagine what you're talking about. I can't imagine going through that, but I'm here. I want to listen. I want to try to do whatever I can to help. And then, oh, by the way, let me tell you how I get through my hard times.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of approach it from that angle.
Well, and also if it's encouragement to people that are listening that maybe don't feel super confident about knowledge of the Bible, and obviously there's things about the Bible I don't understand and can't even begin to explain. I think that can be your testimony can be a good tool to share with people of, you know, hey, I maybe don't know the answer to your super deep theological question, but let me tell you what Jesus did for me in my life and my own story in that way. And I'm going to go research your question and I'm going to try and find the answer. But in the meantime, here's what Jesus did for me and here's what he can do for you.
Right. And I think as if you know where that point in your life is, when you kind of, you know, we talked about in the deconstruction episode of our faith, that kind of stake in the ground. If you know that your life has changed, there was a watershed moment where my life was this, now my life is that. No matter how good or bad, how high or low it was on either side of that, there was that. As long as you know where that was and you can point people to that, I think that is something that people gravitate towards.
Oh, yeah.
I think when you can say, hey, look, you know, I was just going back to my story. I was a kid who wasn't necessarily bad, didn't do anything wrong. Really, I didn't get into trouble, didn't really do anything wrong. You grew up in
like a very moral household.
Yes,
Not necessarily Christian, but a very moral
and
house.
That's exactly the way I would describe it, as a very moral household. But I was still lost. And when I finally came to Christ, I remember for the first time I had a sense of purpose and a sense of peace and a sense of I'm okay with God, you know, and I don't think I ever realized I needed that until I got it, you know, and I think a lot of people are that way too. So I think knowing your story and being able to tell your story pretty concisely, I mean, you don't want to just sit and ramble,
right?
But if you can get it down to just, hey, here's where I was, here's where I am now, and it's because of God. And let me just tell you, as a friend, as somebody who is either sympathizing or empathizing with you in this struggle, this is how I find my peace and joy and satisfaction in life. Yeah. And I think that's what we're called to do. I don't think we're not called to make sure people give their life to Christ. We're not called to make sure they get baptized. We're not called. I don't think God's going to keep a scorebook. In fact, I know he's not of how many people come to faith in him because of our witnessing. But I do think he keeps a scorebook of saying, okay, look, here's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Just take advantage of the opportunity.
Just what did you do with the time that you're here?
Just open your mouth. Just tell them about me. Tell them what I have done and in your life.
And it's really, I think, about being transparent and being honest, because so many people I maybe without even realizing it, they just want truth. They just want to know what's real and what's right. And they'll go searching high and low for something that looks like truth. And there's a lot of fake truth out there, things that look real.
Just think about everything in our society now.
Yeah.
Even just in the year 2020, everything from January to March that we were counting on that we thought was rock solid is just quicksand.
No.
Everything just got turned topsy-turvy, right?
This whole year turned into a dumpster fire, basically.
It really did. But because of what you're talking about, I mean, Christ doesn't ever change, and Christ is that solid rock.
Exactly. Well, if you've been watching the podcast or listening for a while, you know that we are on Patreon. Mm-hmm. These lights, the cameras, everything that you see here, all the equipment, it doesn't come free. There is some cost behind it. It takes some energy and some effort with a wonderful team that we have here. And we want to keep the podcast going as long as we possibly can. So we really appreciate you and your support being a patron. And we really would encourage you, if you are a patron, tell your friends about it. If you're not, look into it. There's a ton of perks that come with being a patron. You get the podcast early. You get a little special access to different things, behind the scenes videos, stuff like that. But also it's a great way to really connect and be a part of the community here.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest part is, yes, it does help us continue to production costs and all that kind of stuff. But we also lean very heavily on our patrons.
We're still figuring out the lingo. It's a very
tricky word, Patreon.
Whoever kind of greenlit that title.
I thought about that
Side note.
I've thought about that too. But we lean really heavily on them because for creative ideas and for encouragement and for prayer and just really, they are our team.
Yeah.
And so we invite you to join us. We start at $5 a month. You can get a few rewards that way. $15 a month is another tier that we've got. And we just appreciate whatever you can carve out for us because we know how hard it is to come across funds and to talk about a monthly podcast supporting it. But I'm telling you, it's a community thing where we want to really involve you with what we're doing. And for your financial support, we will really work hard to be good stewards of it and produce podcasts that reach out and touch people where they're at and encourage people to continue to live their life for Christ.
Yeah. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/Steve and Bethany's Hopecast.
All right, welcome back, Steve and Bethany, Hopecast, rolling on. And first of all, before we move any further along, got to say, today's very first episode of the Steve and Bethany Hopecast, where Jarvis Jr. is flying solo.
We could not be more proud, honestly.
Absolutely.
Good job.
Very good out of you, Jarvis.
Look, he's blushing.
He kind of is.
He's so embarrassed.
He kind of is. So
we're like proud parents over here.
We are. I know.
Little bird leaving the nest.
It really is. So good job out of you. And I came across this story, and I'm sure you've probably heard about it. It's the TikTok. Are you on the TikTok?
I'm not on the TikTok.
Hey, Jarvis Jr., are you on the TikTok? You are.
He has a TikTok? Okay.
You have a TikTok account. Okay, so it's been my thing that the TikToks are basically like geared toward like teenage girls. Would you say that or no?
That age group?
Okay, so that age group. Okay.
I feel like it's just Gen Z as a whole. Okay, everybody that's like 18 and under.
And again, this is another inexperience of Jarvis Jr. When we ask you a question, you answer the way we need you to so we can keep moving. So
we're learning. It's fine.
He doesn't care. He's like, "Come on, man, wrap it up. I got 2 more podcasts I got to produce today."
He's trying.
So anyway, the TikTok. It came out that our government has said the TikTok could be going away.
Well, okay. That's kind of part of the reason I don't have a TikTok.
Yeah.
Is because I heard some conspiracy theories about it. I heard some things. I got some sources, and so that's why I haven't had it. I haven't had an account. My sister is obsessed with it. She loves it.
Right.
And she sends me TikToks all the time, and I'm like, I don't have the app. I can't watch this. I'm sorry.
Okay. See, my daughter is in the same boat. She loves it. In fact, there's a guy at the radio station that I work for. He's got a teenage daughter named Amber too, so it's very confusing. But my daughter Amber and his daughter Amber are just
obsessed.
TikTok obsessed. They're crazed about it. And we're like, and both of us are like, Well, I mean, what's the difference really between it and a Vine? Remember Vine?
Well, Vine went away though.
Well, I know, but I mean, it's a video. It's a little
Yeah,
thing, you know.
that's true.
No, Dad, you don't understand. TikTok is totally different, and she's very, very upset at the thought that TikTok may go away. So here's what she's done, because she's like, you know, she's 15. She's
Yeah.
like, I don't care if Chinese people are watching me. I'm not doing anything. This is my sole.
So what if North Korea wants to infiltrate through TikTok?
This is my sole entertainment that I have, and I want to keep it. I don't care. So here's what she's done to try to beat the system. Okay, this is totally my daughter, because if I was in her shoes, I would probably be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But so she's got it in her mind. Okay, the United States government says we may take away TikTok. So she changed the region where she is on TikTok to Canada.
No.
So she thinks that's going to help. She thinks they're going to look at her TikTok account in the middle of the United States, right in the heartland of the country, and say, oh, yeah, that's a mistake. She's in Canada.
Surely not, though.
Well, she's already changed it. She is prepared. She is.
How do you change your region, though?
She's found a way.
Man.
She's found a way.
I don't know about that. I don't know if that's how, like, our government surely is smarter than that.
Well, you would think, but she is, and she's got some backup plans that I didn't really even get into with her, but she's not going to go down without a fight. She is not giving up to TikTok without a fight.
Did you see that Instagram just created like their own version of TikTok, basically?
Really?
It's called Reels, like a film reel.
Well,
and it's set up the exact same to compete.
Is it? Okay, well, maybe that will suffice her, because I'm telling you, Hades doesn't have wrath like the 15-year-old girl that's been scorned for the lack of TikTok.
Here's my thing. I don't know. I'm about done with social media. I really am. It's just all too much.
Yeah.
Like, there's always new things happening. Like Instagram always gets a facelift and they rearrange how everything's done, and then you have to learn how to use it again. Facebook's the same way. I deleted my Twitter because it stressed me out. I can't do it. Scrolling through the homepage, it's so disorganized. There's no rhyme or reason to it, and it stressed me out. So I deleted my Twitter probably like 2 years ago. But Instagram and Facebook are really the only social media accounts I have, and they're just too much. Like, it's an overload of information. I can't do it anymore. Do I sound like an old person by saying that?
Well, what I was just about to say is, if you're just listening, if you're just tuning in for the first time, who's the old person? Who's the young person?
I'm going to update my Instagram profile to just say, get off my lawn.
Right.
I'm deleting my account. Get off my lawn. Not doing it.
That's good. All right. So that just about puts a bow on this edition of the Steve and Bethany's Hopecast.
Episode 15.
I know. It's
Crazy.
it's flying by. So we're thankful for everybody being here. Please continue to tell your friends about us. Please share us on social media, even though Bethany hates social media, so that people will know about it and we can grow this. Because really, I mean, we do have fun, but we really do want to encourage people in their walk with Christ. And we're thankful for the platform we've been given, and we want to expand it. So anything you can do to help out, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good night, Olive Branch.
Oh, you almost forgot.
I almost forgot. Yeah.
Oh.